Well, good morning, Nicole. It's so great to have you with us today. And before we start talking, I want to take a moment and congratulate you again as the chair of the Alexandria Chamber of Commerce. That is so, so awesome. And the timing couldn't be any better. We are wrapping up African American Heritage Month, and we are rolling right into Women's History Month. So you're kind of hitting everything, and then March 8th is International Women's Day. I've read your bio. It is an absolute honor to share these dates with you. You're a leader, you're an entrepreneur, you're a former White House attorney. You majored in history, you have a master's degree, a law degree, and you're a master gardener. Wow. Tell us a little more about your background and professional experience.
Sure. Well, first, good morning, Teresa. Thank you so much for having me. It really is an honor and a pleasure to be here, just spending some time talking with you today. I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for that and that wonderful introduction. See, a little bit about me. Well, I grew up in northern New Jersey, in Elizabeth, if anyone really wants to know. And when I was a kid, I loved gardening ever since I was little. I used to grow tomatoes in my front yard. And then my other loves, I wanted to be a DJ and I loved design. Pretty eclectic background, yes. And history, I was a big too, yes. So I was always just getting into things, doing, I wrote a little like newspaper for my blog. I was growing tomatoes and handing them out, but then I was like riding dirt bikes with my friends. I was a bit of a tomboy. And so just kind of always in the mix and always trying to do different things. But then in high school, when it's time to think about what you want to do next, I actually wanted to go to design school. And so I did. I applied to design school. I spent a year at FIT in New York. And I thought, I love design, but I need to do something else a little bit meatier right now, So that's when I switched paths, majored in history instead. And then after getting my history degree, at Hofstra in New York, I went on to the University of Chicago, got a master's degree in political science. I spoke at a conference. I was studying immigration, actually, and looking at the way the University of Chicago program is set up, you kind of study different fields. And so I was looking at immigration in Western Europe. My father originally is from Trinidad, and he first lived in the UK before moving to the United States. And I always wondered why he left the UK to come to the US. And so I was studying that, and I worked all this time on this huge paper, months of research, and there were like 6 people in the room. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to do research, I need to like apply it and do something else. And so that's when I went to law school, and I thought I can really do research and really help people. And so that's what I did. I went to Georgetown for law school. I had a great experience there. I was executive editor of the American Criminal Law Review, which is Georgetown's criminal law review. My third year at Georgetown, I did the Juvenile Justice Clinic. And so I represented juvenile respondents in DC Superior Court that were charged with felonies and misdemeanors. And then, and I also interned at DOJ while I was in law school too.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry. Should I pause for a question or? Okay.
Yeah.
So then after law school, I went to a law firm and I did antitrust mostly. And it's so bizarre, when I was in law school, I was a law and economics fellow as well. I had, again, always like in the mix doing these different things. And, law and economics is always thought of as this very conservative field. And I went into it thinking, well, how can we take these economic principles and apply them in areas where we don't really think about them? And so I was looking specifically at housing policy and how to figure out ways to have more moderate income housing in a way that was sustainable by the market. And so, I was doing that, and then I was representing juvenile respondents. So again, just very, sort of diverse legal background. And then I go to law school and I did antitrust, which is all, consumer protection, merger work. Did that for 5 years. And then after my son was born, it was just really hard to sort of manage firm life. My husband's also at a firm, and we didn't have any family here. And so just, I was part-time at my firm, but even part-time was basically full-time. And since I worked on a lot of deals that were with Japan, I was on the phone at very late nights, and it was just kind of untenable, essentially. And I reached out to the general counsel that I used to work with when I worked at DOJ as an intern in law school, and a lot of the same team was still there. And so I was able to go back into that office at DOJ, where I spent another 5 or 6 years. And that is called the Office of Justice Programs, and it's the grant making part of the Department of Justice. And that office, oh my goodness, you want to talk about making an impact and knowing that your work is meaningful. That every day you knew you were doing good work. You could go home thinking you made a difference. We're assigned different program offices, and we help the program offices provide assistance to different people in different situations within the country and sometimes internationally, depending on. And so I worked with the Office of Victims of Crime, which assisted victims of domestic violence, victims of international terrorism abroad. We responded to all of the massive violence events in the United States. So like I worked on the Newtown school shooting, the Aurora movie theater shooting, like the victim response, I worked on all of those. And so, it was a very, trying is not the right word. I mean, it gets to you. I mean, it can be draining what you're doing when you're dealing with that sort of stuff every day. But it was meaningful, and you always, like I said, you knew that you were doing good work when you got home from that day. And I loved that job. I loved being at DOJ. I loved my comrades, as I say. I mean, it was great. But then one of the policy folks that I worked with at DOJ, she was promoted to this deputy director position at the White House. And the White House needed essentially someone that what I was doing at DOJ, but they needed it for their own office. This was the White House of National Drug Control Policy. And so instead of doing victim response and shooting response, and I was specifically just working on drugs, but even though the program area was different, the body of law that we were drawing from was the same. And so, I went over there and was deputy general counsel in the White House Office of Drug Control Policy. And I did that through the end of the Obama administration. And then, the administration changed, lots of things changed. And so
lots of things changed.
Yeah, lots of things changed, yes. So then I thought, okay, let me take a breath. It'd been a kind of very busy 12-ish years, and so, and let me see what makes sense, And this is why I wanted to start with the design story, because I thought, I've always had this interest in design for a really long time. And while I was still practicing in all these areas, I always still very much had an interest in sustainability. And I was really just applying it to my own life, looking for designers that practice, sustainable fashion, that use natural fibers, that treated their workers fairly, that didn't impact or minimize their impact in their production processes. And so I was just kind of doing that on my own. And I had people who were always asking me, well, where did you find this? Or where did you get this? And I thought, oh, well, wouldn't it be great maybe to have them all in one shop? Maybe, I'd always had this idea for a shop in the back of my mind. And I thought, well, maybe now this is the time to give that a try and see how it goes. At that point, I was a little bit frustrated with, I just felt like I wanted to have more of an impact on how things were going and show that businesses can be a force for good. And maybe you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. I think I was a little upset sort of with like other processes at that moment. And so I thought business might be a way to sort of show like, this is how you can be a responsible citizen. It was another way to do it. So, and that's how I ended up with Threadleaf.
I absolutely love this. Do you miss practicing law any?
I do sometimes, because unlike a lot of other attorneys who say that they hate it and what have you, I mean, I really had a fantastic experience, even at my law firm, even though it was long hours. I worked with good people. I worked on interesting matters, DOJ I loved, White House I loved. To some extent, you still practice a little bit as a small business owner. I mean, it's not to the same scale, but like with my lease agreements, vendor agreements, all those sorts of things, it's still, I'm still relying on it in those sorts of ways.
Okay. Okay, no, and I heard in your answer how you touch on everything that you're doing now. The only thing I didn't hear about is your DJing. What was your DJ name back in the day? Did you have
Oh,
one?
because I never actually DJed. It was like a dream. It's still a dream of mine to do it.
Okay.
Yes, that is
Well, we're going to add that to the list. Have to add that to the list.
So, I mean, I probably have
Oh
some
my goodness.
like old mixes in here somewhere, but like I've never actually DJed anywhere. So,
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. And I'm from northern New Jersey too. I have family and I had family in Elizabeth and Orange. I was born in Morristown, so but we left years and years ago. So yeah, yeah. So do you have any women role models who played a significant role in shaping your life?
sure. So big one first is my mom. It's funny, when you're growing up, sometimes you don't realize like how much your mom is actually doing, and it's only when you become an adult or when you become a parent yourself. I have a 13-year-old that you realize, wow, like you think back and you're like, well, I remember what was going on with me. And then you realize what was going on with them. And you're just like, oh my goodness. And they're just managing all of it. And you don't even know, like, you don't even know
Mhm.
like what struggle they're doing or, what they're pulling to get everything together. And then she's so creative and talk about being able to make something from nothing. My mom is like the queen of that. And so definitely learned a lot from her, big time. And then also, when I worked at my law firm, I was there at the same time as Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she
Oh,
actually
wow.
was a fantastic mentor, role model, always just giving advice, very free with her time, very giving, just a wonderful colleague and friend. And I think about things. I was pregnant when we were working together, and she's just had all sorts of like life tips, so that I still think about. So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so she
Awesome. Thank you for that. So let's talk a little bit about Alexandria, Virginia, the city itself. It is one of the most culturally rich and unique small cities in the country. It attracts business professionals, families, tourists. Geographically, it couldn't be any better. It's right on the Potomac River. It's 5 miles away from DC. It's entrenched in so much history. We have Old Town, we have Delray, the Delray neighborhood, Braddock Station, and all of that relies on a balanced and engaged business community. Um, and there are over 750 business members that belong to the Alexandria Chamber, including us, the United States Senate Federal Credit Union.
are very
And
happy.
so the range is very diverse. Absolutely. And the range is very diverse. We have there's one of a kind businesses, there are not for profit companies, and there's also leading global organizations. And you've been a member of the chamber since 2018, which is when you open up your business. So, what interests you in the Alexandria Chamber of Commerce in the first place, and what do you see as the chamber's mission today?
Sure. Well, I think what interests me was that the chamber was the best place for a small business, especially a very, very small business like mine, to have a voice and what was going on, whether it was city policy, state policy, even sometimes national policy. And so just being able to have your voice magnified, I saw as a real benefit. I also saw that, there at the time to me, and I see it now as chair, like we're everywhere. We're at ribbon cuttings, we're at networking events, we're pulling these things together, we're at legislative breakfast. And so just the ability to bring people together, to bring businesses together, to bring people who are thinking about starting a business together. I
Mm-hmm.
really see the value in that. And I think that we do a really good job of engaging people. Something else that we're doing more of now, that I'm very happy about is thinking of it's like a whole of business approach and it kind of makes me think of back when I was in DOJ, we used to have something called wraparound services, where if we were helping a victim, say, it wasn't just about providing a shelter space, but it might also be about providing her training so that she could get a job, so that she's no longer dependent and can be on her own. And then I think about sort of whole of business approach here, and it's maybe not just getting a contract or getting a permit, but it's also thinking about, your workforce pipeline, or thinking about amenities in the city that make your team happy, so just not just thinking about the very nuts and bolts things that I think businesses are typically thinking about, or that chambers are typically thinking about, but thinking about this whole of business approach, and almost like you have a well-rounded person, making sure your business is well-rounded as well to help ensure the longevity of the business and the happiness of your team. So
Oh, I like that. It almost sounds like mentorships for like brand new businesses, like almost like a toolkit. These are the things you need to do to be successful. I love that. I really,
but
really love that.
even for established businesses though too, sometimes you get used to doing something this way because you've always done it this way. And maybe, I think with COVID, coming out of COVID, we're realizing that maybe some of those things should be reevaluated, to help keep you nimble, to help keep you agile, and just help keep you competitive. And so really just, doing your sort of like a business 360, and just making sure that,
360.
just looking at the whole thing.
Right. Thank you. No, I like that. So, what are your main priorities as chair for this year?
Sure. So the things that I'm looking at is, one thing, we're doing it really well already, but I'd like to do more of it, is engaging in our community. We have a lot of members that are really involved, and I love that. But we're thinking about now, how can we either deepen it or go into areas where we haven't really done that before. So this year, for example, we're doing a career con in March, and this is the first time we've ever done it. And we're partnering with local high schools, local post-graduation schools. So not necessarily four-year colleges, although we have some, but we also have technical schools, two-year schools, and matching them with employers, and just having, like we said, a career con where people can come in, students can come, employers can come, and you can just learn about different career prospects. And that's something we've never really done before, where we've sort of reached more fully into the community to talk about different opportunities that are available for folks who live and go to school here. Something else I'm very interested in is, fostering this culture of sustainability, and having all of our companies, all of our members in some way be able to embrace more sustainable practices within whatever their specific business is. I think, some folks, it might be easier than others, but, everyone can figure out some way to either, maybe cut their water usage or lower their electricity footprint. There's different things that we can do that I think if we just make them habits, it'll make a big difference. I think a lot of it, again, going back to the business 360 idea, we just do them because we're used to doing them. And maybe if we just identify other ways to do things that are painless or somewhat painless, but you just have to know that it's an option and then make that switch. So that's something else that I'm really keen on doing this year. And then also, just always making sure, one, that small businesses realize that they have a home at the chamber. I think a lot of the smaller businesses, because that's a lot of what I know, they don't think there's a place for them. They don't see the point. So just making sure that they know, yes, you have a home here as well. And then just making sure all of our members continue to be engaged, or if they're not very engaged, increasing their engagement. And just with the chamber itself, because it's definitely one of those organizations where the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And so just making sure that everyone really sees the value of their membership and is getting something out of it. And, different people want different things. Some folks want networking. Some people just like going to the events. But, whatever it is that you want out of it, I want to make sure you're getting out of it.
Okay. No, I really, really like that. I like that there needs to be that home base, because like you said, it could be a new business or it could be a business that's been doing things the same way for years and years. And, I need a recharge, let me see what I can do differently. So I love that. So what opportunities for women and the work for the chamber is doing that has you most excited?
Sure. So we have our annual women's conference, which is this year, it's March 24th, and this is the 10-year anniversary of it. So that's very exciting, just that we've been going strong for 10 years. And each year, COVID years were a little bit different, but each year we get more, the attendance increases. The attendance increases. So that's great to see that's just doing so well. We also have a new committee. It's still in the works. it'll launch on our website soon, but we have been hosting some events, and this is our diverse business community. It's so this is for sort of, for people who are sort of new business owners, who are thinking about starting a business, who I think most people or some people would not think of as your traditional business owner. And so we're starting this new group, and that will be a place where people can get, nuts and bolts, here's, business plan, income statement, like things like that. And so I'm very excited about that as well, because again, this is a new program, just like CareerCon is a new program and a new way to reach out to folks that we may not have reached before, to, again, show them that there's a space for you here. And if you want to open a business or grow your business, we can help you do that.
Okay. So now let's switch gears one more time and let's talk about your business.
Okay.
Threadleaf and Company. And I'm really excited to learn more about this because I am an advocate for sustainable fashion. Everything that I wear, I turn back into, I consign, I give away. I haven't been in a store in a real sense in a very long time to buy clothes, because there's just so many ways to recycle clothes. So I would love to hear your story about Threadleaf and Company. Tell us more about that.
Sure. It's interesting how you said, like, there's so many ways. Yes, exactly. That's what I'm finding out too. There's so many ways. So originally it was a traditional brick and mortar shop in Old Town, where I focused on pretty small designers, and I had limited runs and people could come in and everything. Of course, COVID changed all of that. And I sort of had this hybrid, I had an online shop, but then I also did appointments, I would do visits. And so I was kind of, again, like all of us, we were just trying to figure out, how to make it work in this new environment. This past season, I was online with a short-term lease in Old Town for the fall, which went very well. And I was still doing appointments and meeting with people one-on-one. And now I have something in the works, but it's sort of under wraps right now. I'm doing a lot of speaking and working with, I've been doing workshops, speaking with students and doing a lot of that, like helping them sort of either think about their own business plans or thinking about how to add sustainability into whatever their existing business is. But like I said, I have some other projects under wraps that you'll have to stay tuned for.
Okay. Have to stay tuned. Okay. All right. I look forward to hearing that. One thing I did read when you started your company, and I believe I remember this correctly, it's about also just finding a level of comfort, because I think I read somewhere that you didn't really like wearing pantsuits. And I chuckled to myself. I said, she was already on the cusp before the pandemic, where we were all forced, even if we loved that kind of dressing, we were out of that dressing, and we found ways to still look professional, all while being comfortable. And so I was reading this, thinking to myself, I'm like, she was already on the cutting edge of that.
My mom is always telling me that. She's like, you're always like 2 steps ahead. But so yeah, I always loved dresses. I was never a suit person. And so it was always, especially when I was at my firm, in my mind, it was always like, well, what can I get away with? And I didn't really want it to be that sort of formulation of like, what am I getting away with? It's more like, what can I wear that I like to wear, that's professional, that's appropriate, that's comfortable, that you're not constantly like tugging at your button or because when you're doing that, you're not being your best you. You can't focus on what you're doing. And then the other thing too was that, I would, because all of my dresses have pockets. And so I would call them badge friendly dresses, because I always worked basically in secure locations where you needed a badge. And you needed somewhere to put them. So I would call them badge friendly dresses. And then if you just have a long to change, like you might not be able to change, you could be dropping off your kid, going to a meeting, like in the building, then going outside of the building, and then going back to do pickup. And, you want things that you don't need to dry clean, because there might be like oatmeal from, something. So, just like nice, like so that's the goal. So.
Okay. No, I definitely I can appreciate that because you want to be comfortable because you can't. You spend more time being self-conscious of what's ill-fitting than really bringing your best self to work every day. So, well, I look forward to whatever you have under wraps. I can't wait to hear what that's going to be. So we are going to now. I want to talk a little bit. I want to circle back real quick and talk about women. What advice would you give to women looking to reinvent themselves? And I know you kind of touched on it for people when they start their own business, but if you come across a woman who just simply wants to reinvent themselves, whether it's starting a business or just simply trying something new.
Yeah. Well, I mean, depending on what it is, I might say start small. Like if it is a business, I'd probably say start small, keep your costs low while you're trying things out to see how it goes. If it's something else like a class, say, or, just start. It doesn't have to be massive, but I find that a lot of people, I find that women in particular do this, but lots of people do it, men and women, is that they sort of argue against themselves and they talk themselves out of it, and they give themselves 1,000 reasons why they can't or shouldn't do something. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, just do, I mean, unless it's like, some $50,000 thing that you can't, but if it's just like a class, just do it, just try it, and just don't argue against yourself. Will be lots of other people telling you can't do something. You shouldn't be one of those people too. So, just try.
I love that. Don't argue against yourself. I think we've all been there, and just do it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you're a certified master gardener and a member of the Master Gardeners of Northern Virginia. I can barely water a plant. This is very impressive to me. Tell us a little more about the Master Gardeners of Northern Virginia and what do they do for the community?
Sure. So like I think I mentioned in the beginning, I've loved gardening ever since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading about this program and I thought, oh, this is amazing. Like, I want to be involved in this. And so, Virginia, as do every other state, has a Master Gardener program. In Virginia, we have Master Gardeners of Northern Virginia, which covers Alexandria and Arlington, but then we have other regions throughout the state. Each group, each Master Gardener is certified through a program that's run by Virginia Tech. And it's a combination of book classes, like, actual classes with quizzes and whatnot. And then you have like a hands-on practical component where you're pruning or you're identifying plants or you're running a plant work, volunteering at a plant clinic and helping people to identify problems with their own plants. And so it really is the place for plant lovers, and not just plant lovers, but plant lovers who want to help people. And so that's what we do. So there are plant clinics that are at the farmers markets. There's a walk-in plant clinic at the Fairlington Community Center. We have garden days, we have seed days, we have kid days. We work with schools.
Wow.
And so we just help to instill a love of gardening in people, as well as some skills to help them. And it can be indoor plants as well. I mean, we definitely have folks who focus on indoor plants, but we run the gamut: vegetables, fruits, cutting gardens, herb gardens, tea gardens, indoor plants. So it's a great group. Whenever I'm gardening, I'm happy, first of all. And then whenever I'm with this group of folks, it's just and they're all like really smart and interesting in other ways too. It's a great group. And we do a lot, I think, to help people with their plant needs. So yeah.
Oh, that is neat. So is your son interested in gardening as well?
As he's gotten older, his interest has waned a bit. He used to be like my right-hand man out there. And now I can get him to come, but it takes a little bit more cajoling, but then he loves whatever is coming out of whatever's coming out of the garden. So but it's I also used to volunteer at this farm. It's called the Arcadia. Well, I'm on the board now, the Arcadia Center for Sustainable Agriculture, and I used to volunteer there, and I was a farm educator, and I would work with kids who were coming out there on field trips, and just showing them, a lot of these kids, they're not used to playing in soil and like just seeing things grow, and it's fun with kids, just really pointing them with like, this is where your food comes from, and yes, you can grow some of your own food at home. And this is what like a tomato tastes like when you grew it yourself and you just picked it and it's, just perfectly ripe. So I think once he gets a little bit older, he's going to circle back. I think he's just in that sort
We'll
of,
circle back.
early phase where he just thinks it's
Yeah,
not cool to hang out with mom.
right.
At least that's my hope.
It will come back.
Yeah.
It'll definitely come back. Yeah, and actually, you segue to my next question because you are on the board of the Arcadia Center for Sustainable Agriculture, also Move to Learn and Visit Alexandria. So can you share a little bit more about your work with these organizations?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned with Arcadia, I was a farm educator volunteer. I'm on the board now. And Arcadia's mission is it's basically like a food justice organization. And so there's a mobile market that goes out to food deserts and provides produce for folks who might not necessarily be able to get fresh produce other ways or would have to travel very far to get it. And then there's also a veteran farmer program there that helps veterans that are returning who maybe want to try something different. And so there's like a intensive training program. And then if they want to start their own farm someplace else, it will help them get the tools to start their own farm. And then we also provide produce to a lot of the local restaurants in the area as well. And we help the farm, like basically the farmer graduates, help provide them an outlet for their produce to local restaurants. So it's a great organization. Move to Learn. Yeah, they do a lot with a small team. It's amazing. Move to Learn also has a small team and does a lot. And this Move to Learn used to be called Running Brook. It's now Move to Learn. It's focused on Alexandria City Public Schools from kindergarten through high school. And this is providing active learning opportunities for kids. So many times, kids are called out for misbehavior or being fidgety or being disruptive when it's really they just have like energy that and so energy. We provide the spinning chairs and like the pedal chairs so like they can sort of get that energy out and still learn and not be deemed disruptive. We have pedal readers that we bring to libraries so kids can pedal and read at the same time. Some of the schools have preschool like yoga classes and preschool running classes so kids can get some energy and like some exercise before school starts. Some of them are after school. At one of the schools it's like a combined garden and Move to Learn class where it's like the pedals help sprinkle and water the garden. So it's like so it's like a combination of STEM and garden and physical education. And so that's what Move to Learn does. We work with Alexandria City Public Schools to help bring movement to schools to help kids learn. That's our mission in a nutshell. Oh. And then Visit Alexandria, that's another, running a Move to Learn has a pretty small team but we have an impact on almost every school in the city. That's another one, small but mighty team. And then Visit Alexandria, that is the city's tourism board, essentially. And so the goal of Visit Alexandria is to bring people into our great city. One thing that's great with them, for every dollar that is spent at Visit Alexandria, we get $6 back in revenue from tourists. And so it's a great investment. It helps keep commercial businesses and resident taxes low because we are getting extra income from visitors. It also is an opportunity for us to share our great city with other people so they can see how fantastic it is. And it's nice because, prior to COVID, Visit Alexandria really focused on international and national visitors to the city, which is great, but they might only come once a year, once every other year. During COVID, they changed a little bit of their advertising model to focus on the DMV and sort of like folks that are 4 to 2 hours out, and which is great because it's a new market, but it's also a market that can come more frequently. And so and I think that's been working really nicely too, with more, folks from Gaithersburg, say, or from Charlottesville or, Annapolis coming. And I think it's been nice. And they, again, it's another small team that does so much. But it's a really great way to learn the city, know what's going on, see all of the great businesses that are here. And it's helpful for the businesses that are in the chamber to know what what's going on with Visit Alexandria. They actually have a good relationship, because I think we help with folks who are thinking about having an office here, or having some sort of investment here, like to see what's going on, see the vibrancy of the city, and see it's not just about square footage and like an office space per se, but like what other amenities are around that can, going back to this sort of thinking about your whole business, other things that'll help keep your team happy. So.
Right. And when I have family, I have a lot of family in North Carolina. When they come visit, I treat Alexandria. I live in Maryland, in Prince George's County, but I treat Alexandria as an extension of where I live. So when people come visit, the visit is not complete until we've taken a water taxi from National Harbor to Old Town Alexandria to kind of hang out. Typically on a Sunday, where we, when the weather is warm, with all the open restaurants where you can eat outside and go to the shops. So I always treat Old Town as an extension of where I live, the entire DMV. So for me, and talking to my friends and family, it's the entire experience. And so I love to hear that there is an entire organization just dedicated to that. And the move to learn, I'm a former educator, so that's just pulling at all the heartstrings. I absolutely love that. Will there be a partnership with something like that with maybe Washington, D.C. schools, or possibly schools in Maryland in the future?
That is a good question. And it's something that we talk about from time to time, like whether we should go deeper within the city or broader. I think short term, our goal is we want to make sure that we're in every school in Alexandria first, or at least make the effort before we branch out. But I know we have definitely thought and talked about branching into other cities. And so I can't say like, oh yes, it's definitely next year, but I know we're talking about it and we're considering it and are open to it. We just want to make sure that we've hit everyone here first, and then before carrying it out. But it's a great model. And I mean, it's transferable, it's exportable, scalable, so you can definitely bring it out to other jurisdictions and to other school systems.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing that. So let's future forecast. If there are one or two outcomes you could see in a decade from now, what would your hopes be for the Alexandria community?
Sure. Well, I would really hope that 10 years out, 20 years out, 50 years out, that we're still very vibrant and that it's very livable and that we have a strong sense of community. And so, we have so many volunteer groups in the city. And so I hope that we can continue that tradition of community involvement, community engagement, people talking to one another, coming together to solve problems. I hope that we can maintain that. And then with livability, I really, we have a lot of building going on, and I get that. But just making sure that we still have our greenscape, that we have our tree canopy, that we have this great river that we can travel by boat all the time and enjoy. If you want to go down the parkway, there's a part called Dyke Marsh that I love to go to with my kids. So making sure that Dyke Marsh stays the way it is. And so really just ensuring that the livability is here for us to enjoy, and basically treasure and take care of for next generation. And then just the vibrancy, having something to do, having something that's going on, making sure that, like you said, when like no trip to DC is complete without coming here, whether it's for a nice night at a restaurant or seeing an exhibit at the Athenaeum or at the Torpedo Factory, or just going out to the West End. I would like to say, because I know a lot of times we focus on Old Town, and I understand why, but also just making sure that, people give the other neighborhoods some love. And I really would like to see that, in the future, that we're not just looking at Old Town, but that we're looking at Carlisle and Weston and Delray, and just making sure we're not forgetting the other neighborhoods that are here, because it is, I think it's a bigger city we're not a big city. I'm not going to say that, but I think it's a bigger city than a lot of people think. So just remembering all of that.
That is very, very true. And that's a perfect way to end it, because, yeah, coming out to Alexandria and becoming part of this community, whether you create a business, you join our credit union, or you just come on a regular basis. So thank you so much for sharing your story and imparting some wisdom as well. I look forward to everything that you're going to do, and I look forward to getting to hopefully work with you in the future.
Oh, thank you so much, Teresa. I've really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed speaking with you, getting to know you a little bit better, and just being able to take some time and talk. So thank you for having me again.
Thank you.